Good morning to you. You. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Good morning. Won't you share with a friend or two? Good morning. Good morning to you. You. Good morning. Good morning to you and many more. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome, welcome, welcome to Daring Dialogues. I'm your host today, Shante Charles, and I, first of all, want to thank you always for your time and for your attention. Thank you so much if you are here catching the replay as well. It is Wednesday, and if you're with us for the first time, Wednesdays is the time that we take to talk all things relationship with self, first of all and foremost, boundary setting, um, romantic relationships. We haven't really talked about romantic relationships in quite a while because we've been working on the self and also working on family dynamics. But we will get back around to talking about that. All right. We are reading two different books by the same author. They're sort of, I would say, a continuation of the first. And the first book is Set Boundaries, Find Peace, a guide to reclaiming yourself. If you have been feeling like you are losing yourself in the midst of everything else that's going on in the world, you feel like you have not been able to keep and maintain your boundaries or have your boundaries honored individually, this is the book you want to check out. All right. And then the second one is Drama Free. Drama Free, a guide to managing unhealthy family relationships. And this is, again, an extension on the first book, but now it's looking at your family dynamics and what to do when you have dysfunctional family dynamics. All right. So let's start with Set Boundaries, Find Peace. We are in the chapter entitled Family under the section Part 2, Chapter 10. And this section is entitled, You Become an Adult When You Set Boundaries with Your Parents. Ooh-wee. A lot of people need this segment. I know. So let's get into it. Adult children are adults over the age of 18. Even if you live with your parents after that, you're legally an adult, and their access to your life shifts, or should. You may, of course, have to adhere to your parents' boundaries if you're living in their household, which is why a lot of people try to not live in their parents' household after 18. However, what's happening with our economy is making a lot of people, especially millennials, have to have a situation where they're either living in their parents' basement, or they're living in the au pair suite, or they're living in a small apartment above the garage. I've been kind of reading about some of the different living circumstances right now, right? You may, of course, have to adhere to your parents' boundaries if you're living in their household, but you can still set some of your own, even if on a smaller scale. And good morning to those of you who are coming in. An essential part of becoming an adult is becoming your own guide. As you feel more comfortable being an adult, you start to lean further away from being ruled by your parents. In some cases, your parents might suggest that setting boundaries is disrespectful, but it isn't disrespectful when done with care. If you're afraid of disrespecting your parents, you might feel better sharing why the boundary is important to you. How do you stand up to the most influential force possibly in your life? How do you change your relationship from that of a child to that of an adult child. For your entire life, your parents have been acquainted with you inside and out. They know what to say to trigger you and to get what they want out of you as their child. You may understand that your parents desire merely, you may understand what your parents desire merely by reading their body language or noticing a shift in their mood or tone. Most people don't want to disappoint their parents, especially if they've had good ones. When I was a kid, the writer says, the worst thing I ever heard from my mother was, I'm so disappointed in you. That statement broke my heart and ensured that I would behave for at least the next 2 hours. Yet when you don't set boundaries with your parents, you are the one who becomes disappointed, resentful, and anxious. At some point, it's healthy for all adults to ask themselves, what do I want? Signs. Here's some signs that you need boundaries with your parents. One, your parents are aware of intimate details of your relationship, particularly if they're causing harm in your relationship. You need some boundaries. Number two, parents are involved with disputes that you are having with other people. It's giving, I'm going to let my parents stand up for me versus learning how to stand up for myself. Number three, your parents don't respect your opinion. You tell them what you think, you tell them how things should go, you tell them what you would like, and then they go and run and do the opposite. You need some boundaries. Number four, your parents enter your personal space without asking. And you know, if you have a parent that does this, that probably isn't the person that you want to necessarily leave a key with. Like if you have a sibling that's less intrusive and lives nearby, you might want to leave the key with your sibling, right? So your parents entering your personal space without asking. You wake up in the morning, your parents sitting on the couch in your home. And you're like, what are you doing here? And lastly, not lastly, excuse me, my bad. Number five, your parents insist that you say yes to everything because it's them. Anybody dealing with that? You gotta say yes. If your parent asks you and they expect you to say yes because it's them, you might need to set some boundaries. And finally, you say yes to your parents out of obligation, even when it's inconvenient. And unfortunately, there are a lot of parents that will take advantage of that, knowing the inconvenience that it might be costing you. So, what do boundaries with your parents look like? Okay, here's a couple of examples, not exhaustive, but examples. Expressing your feelings openly, being able and secure enough to say, this is how I feel, this is what I want, this is what I need. Being able to express that openly and not feel like you're going to be attacked. Okay. Managing your time in a way that works best for your schedule and your lifestyle. Not pressing yourself to attend every family event, knowing that you can't possibly make every family event. Now, there are some people I know whose family is very, very close. Everybody's very tight knit. Most of them, as far as like siblings, maybe live within a 10 to 15-minute drive of each other. That's a different dynamic, right? But you still, even if you do live that close, you still might not be able to attend every family event. Giving them rules about your home. Now, if you have a parent that is somewhat overbearing or somewhat feeling entitled to your space, you might get them saying something like this. Well, growing up, this is how we did it. Or in my house, this is how we did it. For example, your rule could be when you enter my home, everybody takes off their shoes at the front door. You put on a pair of slides or you put on some socks, and then you can enter my home. Your parent might push back and say, well, I don't really feel like taking off my shoes when I come to your house. I like the comfort of my own shoes, right? So giving them rules about your home and they don't want to follow them, you need to stand firm on what your rules are and reinforce them. Not allowing them to show up at your home unannounced. Mm, 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 mm. A lot of people complain about this one, that their relatives show up at their home unannounced, and it's gotten to the point to where they don't even open the door because why are you showing up and you didn't tell? Mhm. Withholding intimate details of your relationship. These are boundaries that you need to hold with your parents. This is what some of them might look like. Not painting your partner in a negative light to your parents. Woo, 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 woo. Another one. Another one that's a frequent issue. I'm very thankful that I've never had that issue. I've never had um, my partner try to paint me in a negative light. Thank you, God. 25 years of marriage, never had that problem. But some people do. And this is one where you'll have to draw back, you have to pull back on the kinds of details that you're sharing if it's becoming a problem. Saying no, introducing your partner to your parents when you are ready, not when your parents insist. So you might be in a relationship with someone now and you're still trying to fill out the relationship, but your mom wants to invite them over to the next holiday party. And you're like, we're not at that stage yet. And your parent is like, oh no, it'll be no problem. Just bring them over. We just want to meet them. And you're like, no, we're not quite at that stage. You might need to set some boundaries. Handling your own disputes with others. Don't try to have your parent handling your disputes for you. Yeah. Good morning. This subject is real. Once my mother came to visit and threw out my couch and replaced it without asking. Oh my God. I cannot even. Ooh, child. Okay. Unannounced was the standard. Oh my gosh. Setting boundaries is important. Yeah, I'll probably be freaking out. Listen, I am neurodivergent. I sometimes have what we call um, chaotic, organized chaos. And so even though I might have piles of things that might look organized or disorganized to someone else, I know exactly where everything is in my pile. And so when you touch it, it's like doing this to my brain. So I cannot even imagine going into my house and seeing my whole couch gone and replaced. That would just, ooh, mm, yeah. And good morning. All right. Handling your own disputes with others, sharing your opinion with your parents. You might need some boundaries around that. Hi, let me reintroduce you to your daughter, your son, your child that is now an adult. You might need to introduce yourself to your parents. I now have boundaries. Let's go over them, right? Being transparent with your parents about your expectations of how they can engage with your partner. You are not allowed to chastise the person that I'm with. You're not allowed to be asking them detailed, inappropriate, intimate conversation type questions. You're not allowed to be bullying them. You're not allowed to be showing up at places where they are trying to get more information. You're not allowed to be interrogating my partner. Like you might have to start setting those kind of boundaries. Mhm. Saying no to gifts that are given with the hope of specific behavior from you. I'm going to give you this gift, and now you have to do what I want. I'm going to help you out on this bill or your mortgage, and now you're going to have to do what I want. You got to set boundaries. All right. Telling your parents that you don't want to be asked about your dating life, having children, getting married, or any other topic that makes you feel uncomfortable. Now, this one, because I don't have children, but I have lots of godchildren. They take all my money. Okay. If you have godchildren, you already know. If you don't have children and you have godchildren, they're still taking all your money. So I don't know why people think that just because you don't have physical children, that somebody is not taking all your money. If you're the auntie that has the money, yeah, somebody's taking all your money still. Like you're not getting out of that, okay? Um, but when it comes to topics like this, right? You have to tell your parents, you have to set boundaries and say, we're not talking about my dating life at the Thanksgiving table. Okay, we're not bringing that up in the middle of, cutting the turkey and stuffing. We're not turning to me and saying, so when you get married, we're not doing that, right? We're not having conversations about when am I having children. There are a lot of people right now that don't want children for various reasons. Some of them economic, some of them personal, some of them being tied to trauma, right? So the topics that make you feel uncomfortable, those are the things you need to be flat out discussing and saying, hey, these topics are off limits. I'm not interested in having a conversation about them. When these things change, when my status change and I feel comfortable sharing with you and telling you and letting you know, I'll be sure to tell you. And then some people say, hey, I'm not ever going to be comfortable telling you about this part of my life. That could be tied to things that happened in the past. It is okay to set boundaries for yourself. And don't let anybody guilt you into thinking that you can't set boundaries for your life. Last one, staying in a hotel instead of staying with family when you visit them. This is a big one for me. And I'll tell you why. I love family. Honestly, I do. But sometimes family does not have proper sleeping accommodations. And I know some people feel like, oh, if you come over, um, we'll have you sleeping like you're in military barracks. Um, I'm about to be closer to 50. And so sleeping military barrack style doesn't work for my body. So I love you. I will come over like, if we're doing a break or something, and I will come over every day and hang out and enjoy your company. I'll bring some food, some snacks, whatever. But when it comes to sleeping, give me a hotel bed. Thank you very much. Some of us need some climate controlled spaces. I don't know anybody out there who might be going through perimenopause, but Paranesia is a beast. And so if you like to set your thermostat at 85 degrees and I need 65, that ain't going to work for me. So I will spend the money for a hotel. Yeah, I will spend the money for a hotel. Lately, right, I tend to be snoring like a freight train. That may not work for your space. You might stay up all night if I am sleeping. So again, I'm going to get a hotel where I can happily be the freight train that I need to be, have the temperature that I need to have. And I have come to realize that some people actually get offended by that. Some people get offended that you are not coming when you come to visit them, that you're not physically staying in their house. And I'm like, trust me. Trust me on this. You want me to stay in a hotel. Yes, you do. Because you don't want to be like, oh my God, she's never coming back to my house. So to save people that, I'm trying to be mindful and thoughtful of other people's ears and, you know, warmth and comfortability and all that. I get a hotel and I'll still come by. I'll come by every day. You want to go somewhere? We'll go driving. We'll see the sights, all that good stuff. But when it comes to rest, I want you to rest and I want to feel comfortable resting as well. So staying in a hotel instead of staying with family when you visit them, that is a foundational key for me. That's a boundary for me. And um, I have found that some people are like okay with that. And then some people insist that you stay with them. Now, I will tell you, If you have a larger home and larger accommodations, and I'm like not right up on where you sleep, I would consider it. But most of the time, I get a hotel. It works out. All right. So now that we have thought about boundaries with your parents and what those boundaries might look like, let's talk about what boundaries with your parents might sound like. So, taking those same points, I want you to listen to some of these wordings and phrases. Here's one. I'm dating someone new. When you meet them, don't ask them when and if we're getting married. Because why are we starting with that conversation? Do you know my relative actually did that to me? My grandmother. Now, it turns out she was right. She was right. She asked my now husband. She didn't say when we were getting married. She just grabbed his hand, held on to it, gave him one of those beautiful grandma smiles, right? And then she said, "Won't you be my son-in-law?" Hmm. First question out of my grandmother's mouth. But she was right. Okay. So she gets a pass. But everybody's not right. Everybody's not discerning. So you might have to tell them, I'm dating someone new. When you meet them, don't ask them when and if we're getting married. That's a very clear boundary setting. Here's another one. I won't be home for Christmas because I've decided to celebrate with my friends. I don't have to tell you why I'm not coming. I just gave you what's happening and what I'm doing and where I'm going to be. Please stop by please, before you, excuse me, please, before you stop by to visit, I would like you to call. I would like you to call. I would like you to text. I would like you to give me a 48-hour notice. I'd like to express my feelings without being told that certain emotions aren't okay. I know that you mean well and want the best for me, but I need to handle things in my relationships without your input. I mean, these days we say, mind your own business or stay out of my business, right? But this is a very kind way to say the same thing. Okay. I know you mean well, you want the best for me, but I need to handle the things in my relationships without your input. Here's another one. I won't accept money from you if it comes with the intention that I do something to earn that money or that you will talk about my borrowing the money. Ooh wee, boy. There's nothing worse than needing money and borrowing money from somebody who's going to remind you every 30 minutes that you borrowed that money and tell everybody else. Oh, yeah. Mm. I understand how important it is to you that I remain connected to my family, but I need to have my own ideas about how to maintain connections without your input. Any of y'all have that relative that wants to give you the inside information or the rundown information on everybody, information that you didn't ask for before you get a chance to know the person and make your own judgments about that said person? Yeah, they need this statement. When I have issues with my sibling, I don't want you to get in the middle by referring to the dispute. We are adults and we can resolve our differences without your guidance. It makes me feel uncomfortable to hear you talk about your relationship. Please find someone else to confide in. Last one. I'm vegetarian and I'd like you to keep that in mind when you prepare meals for the family gatherings. Because why are there 5 meats and no vegetables? Why do we have why do we have turkey cooked 3 ways, ham cooked another way, seafood cooked another way, and we have no fruits and vegetables at this table? What are we doing here? Come on. And you all want me to keep coming to a meat meat lovers Thanksgiving? Just an example now. That's just an example. Okay. I do eat meat. Okay. I'm more of a on the pescatarian side. But just saying. Um, Clear communication. Again, always think about, am I being clear with what I'm saying? Do people have to assume or do people have to guess my boundaries? Or am I being verbally clear on what I need from the people around me? Lastly, important reminders. And then hopefully next week we're going to be back to talk about boundaries around the holidays because, ooh, they're coming up. Important reminders. It's normal and healthy for you to have boundaries in your relationships with people. Remember that your parents are people too. Share your boundaries as soon as you notice that you need them. Don't get too, well, I mean, we're at the end of the year now, but I suppose it's better late than never, right? But share your boundaries as soon as you notice that you need them. Doing so will prevent unwanted reactions that may occur after you've let things go on for so long. Setting them with your parents is new for them and for you. If there is resistance, they're likely adjusting to this new phase in your relationship. You know, in the Black community, we say, oh, I see you done got brand new. Why are you acting so brand new with me? Because I need to. I need to. It's okay. Get used to the new me. It's okay to change, to grow, to evolve. Set the boundary. Don't be worried about somebody saying, oh, you done got brand new. I don't know this. I don't recognize this person. Good, good. I'm glad you don't recognize this person. Now let me introduce myself. You might have to do that at your next holiday gathering. Maybe there's somebody there that you haven't seen in years, in decades, and they want to start the conversation off with the old you, or they want to start the conversation off with the teenage you, or they want to start the conversation off with the 5-year-old you. I haven't seen you in so long. Oh my goodness. You just gotten so big and so tall and so, yes, I'm a grown up now. So let's have a relationship and understand me and get to know me as the grown up that you're being introduced to. Yep. Be clear and consistent when you execute your boundaries. Are there going to be times when you slip up and you don't reinforce your boundary? Probably. You're human, right? But the moment you notice yourself just letting stuff go, you need to reel yourself right back in and remind people of your boundaries. And finally, it's true that you will always be your parents' child. However, you evolve into an adult with your own way of existing in this world. So allow yourself to evolve. All right. We're not going to spend a lot of time in the next book because I do want to have some time for talk back here. And we are on the chapter in the next book entitled Troubleshooting Relationships with Siblings, chapter 12. And these two, I would say, can be difficult because, especially if you grew up in either a really close or tight-knit family, or you grew up in a family where you came up with your siblings and you all experienced a lot of trauma together. I've seen both instances where people whose life with their siblings growing up was centered around trauma and trauma bonding. And so now that they are adults and grown and off on their own, sometimes their boundaries often include not being in contact on the regular with people they spent their childhood with, bonding through trauma. A lot of that time sometimes has to do with not wanting to be reminded of that trauma. And every time they're with their siblings, that becomes the reminder. And so they feel like if I distance myself from my siblings, I'm also distancing myself from the reminder of the traumas that I endured. I have seen that. right? But then on the other hand, if you have siblings that are close together, you still might have some disagreements, some agitation, some arguments, some unresolved issues. And so they still might say, hey, now that I'm an adult, I have purposefully, I just had a conversation with someone who said, I grew up around all of my extended relatives. My sibling passed away, and everybody in my community is really, really close knit. And everybody wanted to just live around each other for the rest of their lives. They didn't want to leave, within a 5-10 mile radius of each other. So everybody is still in the same community, still in the same neighborhood. And they said, I simply wanted different for myself. I wanted to leave. I wanted to venture out. I want to spread my wings. So I moved halfway across the country to do that. I did that intentionally. I made that move intentionally. Um, and people, for that person, they said people resent them when they come back to visit because they feel like, oh, you left us, you abandoned us. Um, and so those are things that they have to figure out and work out to say, how do I express that I greatly appreciate the village that I came from, but I wanted to move beyond that. And it had nothing to do with you per se, but it had something to do with me feeling like I needed to venture beyond that. So let's look at two things here. Forcing love and positive feelings from your siblings, and comparing. Now, I know it feels weird if you have a loving relationship with your siblings, you're very close. You've probably never had to even have this kind of conversation or thought, that you just probably have always assumed, right, that your siblings love you. Whereas there are other people where you don't have that assumption that your siblings love you. Maybe you are not that close, or maybe you grew up in a household where you were not raised with all of your siblings. Some people say step siblings or half siblings. Maybe your parents never married. And so you're growing up with a set of siblings in home, and then there's a set of siblings outside of that home that you might not be as close to. So let's talk about forcing love and positive feelings. Despite blood ties, there may be a few emotional ties between there may be few emotional ties between siblings. This is especially common when they're raised in different homes, have little in common, or have a large age gap, express different views about family dysfunction, or have significantly different personalities. Love happens naturally, so parents can't force their children to love each other. To build connection, some parents are forcing their children to speak positively about one another and push through relationship challenges even after one has hurt the other one deeply. It might be hard for a parent to listen to one child speak negatively about another, but parents should acknowledge their children's concerns. Creating space for them to express their feelings will help them feel less alone and more connected to their parents. It is appropriate for a parent to say something like this: I hear you saying you don't feel connected to your brother or your sibling because they're younger than you and there isn't much you have in common. In other words, I hear you. I understand you're communicating this to me. It isn't appropriate for a parent to say something like this: Your brothers and sisters are your family no matter what, and you have to love them because they're all you have. Whew. When I tell you, that statement right there has set people up for so much abuse within a context of a family or siblings. A lot of people's trauma stems from that one sentence. You have to love them no matter what because they're all you have. I'm just going to say law on that. All right. Address your children's concerns about their siblings. If they're telling you something that is concerning, if they're telling you something that's off, if they're telling you something about the behavior of their sibling that's your child that is dysfunctional, address it. Address it. The news every day is filled with at least 1 to 2 stories of something that a sibling has done to another sibling. And the parents are looking like deer caught in the headlights because they're like, oh, I didn't know this was going on. Or, oh, I didn't know they had this tendency. Or, oh, the child mentioned it, but I didn't really take it seriously. Take it seriously. Take it seriously. Here's a second one, comparing. It's easy to fall into the comparison trap, but people can be different without being compared with each other. Sometimes parents think it's harmless to make comparisons between siblings. Comparisons like, you're less attractive or you're less prettier than my other child. Parents actually say stuff like that. Like, what are we doing? What? Making references to a child's features. There's this thing called featureism. Oh, your nose is so big, or your lips are so big, or your forehead so big. I happen to like my forehead though, right? Or you're darker than this child, or you're lighter than this child. And then you start behaving as if one child's features or one child's color is better. I had some relatives, we were talking about why I didn't get a chance to meet some of my relatives when I was younger. And they were saying to me, they said, well, this person has an issue with colorism. And so if you were darker than a certain color, they treated the children that were brought around them very negatively. So that's possibly why you didn't get a chance to meet that particular person, because the people in your life did not want to subject you to how that person felt about darker skinned children. And I know you're like, well, you're kind of pecan tan. Yeah, I know. And I was too dark. Okay. So be thinking about that. Um, yeah. Sometimes parents think it's harmless to make comparisons between siblings, but it can be hurtful to the relationships between their children, especially when a child notices that their brother, their sibling is favored, their sister is favored. The child may then indirectly ask for the same treatment. For instance, the child might say, you said her hair was pretty. Is my hair pretty too? Since children are different, it makes sense to compliment them for different things. Lying to create equality by saying, I like your hair too, will not be seen as genuine. Children know when you lie. They know when you're lying to them. They do. So when you issue one compliment, be ready to issue multiple compliments. In short, don't ever compare your children with their siblings. A lot of sibling rivalry, sibling animosity, sibling resentment that people have in their adulthood stems many times back to comparisons that were made against them as children. And they saw it walked out and reinforced over and over and over and over again by that parent. And so some of these parents, you're not beating the accusation. You just need to own it. You need to own whatever favoritism you have been doling out. You need to own it. One more time, you need to own it. You need to confess it. And in many cases, you probably need to apologize for it. For example, avoid saying things like, when your brother was 5 years old, he could tie his shoe. Why can't you? Avoid saying things like, your child's favorite color is 5. When I heard that, I was like, I know you lying. Yeah. Don't allow your children to see themselves as deficient because they haven't achieved something within the same time frame as another child in the family. And especially, oh my goodness, for the love of all, that is holy, don't be making these comparisons in front of the child to other adults. Well, Jimmy, Jimmy, he flew through all of the problems and everything, but my little Susie Q boy, she's a little slow. She's not quite as fast as Jimmy. She don't need to hear that. Don't do that. Okay? Don't allow your children to see themselves again as deficient because they haven't achieved something within the same time frame as another child in the family. Everybody learns at their own pace. This continues to apply once children have reached adulthood. It is appropriate for a parent to say something like this, and we're closing. I'm willing to help you with your rent this month. It isn't appropriate for a parent to say something like this. Your brother never asked for help with his rent. Why can't you be more like your brother? Now, you might want to say it, but it ain't helpful, right? Next time in this book, we'll be talking about gossiping about one child to another. It's going to get back to the other child. Gossiping about one child to another, denying problems, and siblings parenting siblings. Some sibling relationships are disjointed, are sometimes fragmented, are sometimes estranged because they spent their childhood parenting you and the parent let them. So now that they're adults, you're no longer in their life because they want to stop parenting you. That wasn't your fault. Your parents did that. Your parents put parenting off on their sibling. So now in your adult relationship, your sibling doesn't see you as a sibling. They see you as another child they had to parent at a young age. And that could be one of the conversations that you might need to have with your older sibling and sometimes your younger sibling. Do you still see me as the child that our parents made you parent? Because I'm not that person anymore, but do you still see me as that? Something that needs to be worked out. All right. I'm going to chop it up. I'm going to chop it up a little bit here. Ben, I think you are still here in the comments with me. Good morning, good morning, good morning to those of you who are still with us. Let me send you the link. Oh my gosh. It is saying the chat is not enabled. And I know this chat was enabled before I started. So let me try this. Let me try it one more time. Copy link. Live chat. It's not letting me. I'm trying to see here. It's not letting me drop the link down. Let me see. That's quick sharing. Let me try it again. Okay. It has just allowed me to send it, finally. So I'll give you a moment to grab the link and come in. While we're doing that, if you're just coming in, I want to reiterate the two books that we're reading from. And that is Set Boundaries, Find Peace, and Drama Free. I highly recommend these. We're about to get into talking about the holiday season, which is chapter 10 in the first one. Chapter 14, which I don't think we're going to get to by the time of the holidays, but chapter 14 in this book here is entitled Troubleshooting Relationships with Extended Family. You're probably going to want to look at that if you're buying this by ebook or audiobook. You can probably look at that chapter. Um, Chapter 15, Navigating In-Laws, would be a good one if you're planning on doing some celebration at the holiday time. All right. Oh, the volume dropped. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I'm looking at Leslie and Co. Leslie and Co., can you hear me still? Hopefully, I'm going to talk a little bit louder so you guys can hear me. All right, go ahead. Okay, go ahead. Good morning.
Okay, I experienced a lot of things that you discussed uh, this morning.
Mm-hmm.
We had the sibling rivalry thing that um, I had this one sister
Mm-hmm.
that everything she said was gospel.
Meaning, if she
It was
said
like
it,
somehow mom would believe this one child.
meaning if she said it, it was just believe, no question. Okay.
What was that?
I said, meaning that if she said it, it was believed, no questions asked.
Exactly. Exactly. And she lied a lot.
Well, that's a bad combination.
And yeah. Yeah. But it took us all becoming adults and decades after we were all adults
Mm-hmm.
for moms to finally realize that she was the trouble of the family. Part of the biggest problem was that she was always the mom and was the one that would run and tell on everybody.
Parents have to wise up to that, right? Because if you have one child that's always running to
Mm-hmm.
tell what everyone else has done, the first question that should be in your mouth is, what did you do?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And one thing I can say about my mom, when we were married, when it was, she didn't interfere
Mm-hmm.
in our marriages. That she didn't do. Regardless of how she felt, she would keep it to herself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thankful for that because there are a lot of parents that won't.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but uh,
You're
you,
breaking you're
you hit a
breaking up
lot of
just
points.
you're breaking up some, Pastor Ben, so I can't hear some of what you're saying.
How about now?
That's better. I also can't see you, by the way. For some
Oh,
reason, YouTube is not allowing me to view you, but I can hear you.
okay, okay. But boundaries are necessary. It needs to be enforced.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't enforce, people just run all over you and run all, just disregard you. Um, so that those are things that I've witnessed. I've witnessed those things. I've seen those things. Even when it comes to parents and children, when the parents, your children run all over them, and then when they get grown, it gets worse. Um,
Yeah.
but I was one of those. I was one of those parents that gave my children a voice.
Mm-hmm.
I let them know that, hey, let me know exactly what you feel, but be respectful. You know, I don't have a problem with you feeling certain ways, or letting me know how you feel or what you feel or what you want. I never had an issue with that
Mm-hmm.
because I came to understand that these are young people to be big, and my job is to prepare them to be big. So I, young age, preparing them for adulthood. And preparing adulthood is not because I say so. That's why.
Mm.
That's not it. That's not it. Give them a reason.
And interestingly enough, there are still parents out here who are saying, "Do this because I said so." I need us to. I
Well,
need us to come
maybe
into.
because they just
I need us to come into the
maybe
new
because they
century.
maybe they said that because they were basically telling them to do it because they for no apparent reason, just to have them to do something. But when I said no, I gave them an explanation why. I gave them an explanation why I said no. Gave them an explanation on why I said yes. This helps them get some type of a gauge, see, of good choices and bad choices.
Mhm. What's allowable
Because
and what's not allowable.
we have too many to make bad choices because they were never given a gauge on what a good choice is or a bad choice is.
One thing I have noticed now, I didn't do this, I didn't have this done when I was growing up because we didn't watch a lot of television. But a lot of parents now are watching films with their children, stopping the films and saying, "Here's the lesson here. What was the reason for what happened? You see the consequence of it. Do you think it was a good decision? Why or why not? What would change? What could you have done better?" So I do see this newer generation of parents actually utilizing media to help have hard talks with children. I think that is a good thing. I
Mm-hmm.
think that is, we need more of that because you don't necessarily have to be in the moment of the decision to try to talk your child through the lesson that they need to learn. I think using media to help explain some of the bigger topics or the harder topics and then breaking it down into smaller pieces, um, asking age appropriate questions with your children while you are viewing something with them is helpful. But the flip side of that is that means you, as the parent, are putting down your devices and paying attention to what your children are watching. You're watching stuff with them versus just sitting them in front of a television and saying, "Hey, I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to let the television teach you." But the television is not necessarily teaching them. If they're just watching without um, understanding what it is they're viewing, I think that can be problematic. Um, but like I said, I do see more parents utilizing media to help them teach or to help them talk about hard conversations with their children. So I think that is good. Leslie and
Mm-hmm.
Co says, "Because I said so can mean I am only teaching obedience, not discernment." Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. And and that is
Yeah.
something, Leslie, that I have tried to emphasize on my social media page. That a lot of times the instructions that parents are giving, they think that they're teaching respect, but they're teaching obedience, and many times they're teaching deference, which is really tied into Jim Crow etiquette. I have a whole um, teaching here on this platform on YouTube about Jim Crow etiquette with children and how those norms from the olden days are still being reinforced in children today. And we think it's a cultural thing. We think it's, oh, this is how black parents parent, when it actually isn't. It actually is tied to Jim Crow. So a lot
Mm-hmm.
of things like, don't look at me when I'm talking to you, or don't look at me when I'm talking to you. That was reckless eyeballing. When your child is looking at you defiantly, and parents get upset, like, oh, you're trying to, give me an attitude about what I'm telling you, or a child is rolling their eyes and all of that. That was seen as reckless eyeballing in Jim Crow. You could get lynched for that. You could get lynched for showing that what was being told to you, you didn't agree with, even though you didn't say a word, but your face said it, right? So we have black parents that say, fix your face. Where does that come from? It comes from the fact that if you didn't fix your face, you could find somebody on your doorstep dragging you out of your house. That's where that came from. And so we have traces of generations past behavior patterns and things that they were instilling in their children during Jim Crow times that's still passing through the black community as behavior and cultural norms. It wasn't our norms. Some of that was for our survival, not looking at the person directly when you are being corrected. Why? Because our parents were not allowed to look at them. They had to keep their head down. So some of that mechanisms that we are still seeing comes out of those eras, and we haven't adjusted what we're doing with each other and what we're doing with children, because we're still carrying remnants of Jim Crow etiquette disguised as childhood training. Let's see. Leslie and Co says, your children are whole people when they get here, exactly, and smarter than they will ever be again. It's our job to treat them that way and teach them how to have a good life. I watched it. You described my childhood. It's also all through, wait. It's also all through the southern white communities. Yes, yes. I'm from the South. And so I understand how important it is to say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and no, sir. I understand that. We call it Southern etiquette, but it's actually Jim Crow etiquette. Because back in those times,
Mm-hmm.
our parents were not allowed a Mr. or a Mrs. in front of their name. In public, they were not called Mr. and Mrs. They were sometimes called boy, girl, right? And so in the black community, you flip that and it becomes a sign of respect that you are a man, that you are a woman. And so you will address me with this title, because in other spaces in the public, I don't get a title. So when you hear older black people talking about the importance of being addressed as Mr. and Mrs., that's what they're referring to. It is again a layover of a culture that if I'm not gonna be respected anywhere else in the world, oh, you gonna respect me, right? In my own house. You're gonna respect me in the religious space. So when you see that with older black people, that you will and you must address them with a title, it is oftentimes because in their public life in the past, they had no title. They weren't allowed to take a title.
Mm-hmm.
And if you did not address your bosses in your, if you were domestic service, if you didn't address the wife as with that title, you could be beat. You could be fired. You could be sent home without no pay. You could be lynched if you were a man. Okay? All of that comes out of that Jim Crow etiquette. And we have to start unpacking that. And when I challenge black parents to unpack some of that, they get mad at me. They cuss me out. I'm okay. I'm okay with that. As long as you understand where that
Mm-hmm.
stuff comes from, and then ask yourself, why am I packing that into the next generation? I'll tell you as an educator, and this is my last thing I'll say. I'll tell you as an educator, very Rarely did I have a white student that addressed me as Mrs. Charles without me having to tell them to put a Mrs. on in the front of my name. Why do you think that is? They
So
didn't
they
want
were
to
taught.
address me as Mrs. anything. It was, "Hey, Shante," and I had to say, in this setting, I need you to put Mrs. and then I need you to use my last name. There are even some schools that I worked at that took off the title and said they can call you Miss Shante, but typically we don't want students using titles. That was hard for a lot of black teachers to wrap their mind around. What do you mean you don't want them using titles? What are they supposed to call me? By your first name. And so, again, it depends on the lens by which you are looking at some of these things, but understanding what is the root. What is the root? Am I doing this because I'm trying to instill some character in my child, or am I passing on generational trauma and I don't even know it? But I'm labeling it as discipline. I'm labeling it as training up a child. You're training them all right, but what are you training them in is the key. And we're back. Yeah, we're back to drawing boundaries. They are convincing women and people of color to acquiesce, pre-acquiesce to oppression. Yes, they're trying to train us back into deference. That's what they're trying to do. I moved from East Texas and reparented myself when I raised my child. Awesome. Awesome. Final thoughts, Pastor Ben. I know we're way over time here. Final thoughts.
You hit on some key things like our culture. What many people call our culture here, like they try and say that we're violent people,
Mm-hmm.
dangerous people. Not our culture. If it was our culture, just think about it. If it was our culture, the things that they put us through, this country would have been messed time. A lot of people, not our color, would have been dead.
True.
But because not our culture, because our culture is a culture of love, that hasn't happened. But we're showing them who we are now because we're just standing back
and saying we're gonna
and
watch y'all
saying
now.
we're gonna watch y'all now.
We tried to tell
We
y'all what
tried
to
to tell
do,
y'all what to
tried to
do,
give y'all
tried to give
advice.
y'all
Y'all didn't want
advice.
to
Y'all didn't
listen.
want to
Y'all did
listen.
what
Y'all
y'all
did what
wanted to
y'all
do, and
wanted to do,
now
and now
you're
you're
paying
paying
for it.
for it.
And you're wondering why
Black
black
people
people
won't
won't
come
come
work
work
on
on
my
my
farm.
farm. For $11 an hour, 9 to 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. That sounds to me like low budget
That sounds like sharecropping.
low
Not
budget
quite
Sure.
slavery.
not quite slavery, but definitely sharecropping. Definitely sharecropping. Um,
Yeah.
because of course, right now with the cost of living, even $15 an hour is still less than livable wage. Now we know the federal minimum wage is 7.25, but the reality is even $15 an hour in a lot of states is still below livable wage, meaning that person is still going to, even if they're making $15 an hour, they're still going to have to get another job in order to break clear on their bills and on their expenses. But yes, um,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of things that have been passed off as black culture or black disciplinary practices have some roots in Jim Crow etiquette. And I encourage people um, to check out my broadcast. It's in my playlist, and I think it's called Jim Crow etiquette. I think it's that or understanding Jim Crow etiquette. Look it up here on the platform and watch that broadcast because we break it down in great detail and show you how these things have transitioned over from the Jim Crow period to what we see now in child rearing. Listen, I want to thank you all for your time and attention. I know we are way over time. Typically, we are only here for an hour. This has been another episode of Daring Dialogues, and I've been your host today, Shante Charles. Again, I want to thank you for your time and your attention. Tomorrow, we will be back here at 11:30 to 12, and we will be looking at faith practices with Dr. Jamar Tisby's work, The Spirit of Justice, and also another work on reparations, and it's a Christian call to repair. So we'll be looking at what the Christians are saying about reparations in America and what that needs to look like. All right. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to evil. So go out today and be light. We want to say a congratulations to the United States American citizens who participated in the voting process on yesterday, who participated in early voting. We got a chance to see what democracy can look like when people get out and make their voices heard through the ballot box. So take a look. I know there's lots of news reports out there, but my Facebook page, Black Table Talk, has a lot of the winners across different states, the propositions that were voted on, the states that were able to hold on to their majority Supreme Court judges who are trying to demonstrate fairness and equity and justice. So there were a lot of wins on last night. And I just say we have to keep those wins going. We cannot take our foot off the gas. And the Democrats who are newly elected, your feet are going to be held to the fire because some of you had absolutely horrible competition. And so it was not hard to select you because your competition was that horrible. So now that you've been elected, we're still going to hold your feet to the fire. Yes. Because we don't need you to just think that you're going to skate by when in fact you had a horrible person to run against. So it was easy to pick you. Let me say that again. It was easy to pick you because you had someone horrible as the other option. Now, now that you're going to be in office, we're going to hold your feet to the fire. Don't get in there and act like you don't understand what you're there to do because we're going to hold your feet to the fire. All right, now. Okay. All right. I have a book title for you on your investigation of lynching. Let me know how to send you a message. All right. Thank you. Leslie, you can send me a message at ZTHE Daring Dialogues, all one word, no spaces, the Daring Dialogues at gmail.com. And that's anyone else. If you have a book recommendation, if you have a show topic recommendation, you haven't heard us talk about it here and you want to know what our thoughts are on it, feel free to send us a message there. Awesome. Proud to say my son voted for Mom Donnie. Yes, make the calls. Fantastic. Thank you again for your time and attention. Remember, go out and be what, Pastor Ben?
Light.
Light. Take care, everyone. Be well, and most importantly, be light.